minister of the Baptist Church in Carter's Lane in Halesoe. And over the internet we've been using this time to prepare some Bible studies. And we're on a new series which we started off last week, trying to work out what a saint was. And of course, for the Roman Catholic Church, of course, it's a very complicated process to become a saint. We looked at two modern saints, or two recently appointed saints, Mother Teresa of Calcutta and John Henry Newman of Birmingham. And we said that there was a process which had to be followed from becoming venerable to becoming canonised. Now, we also believe that saints is the word that is used in the New Testament to refer simply to Christians. The Greek word hagios, a Christian, also means a saint. And you can find lots of stories of saints in what are called hagiographies, writings about the saints. Now, when I was working, and still am, with people who have to have a learning disability, I was for a while secretary of BUILD, Baptist Union Initiative for People with Learning Disabilities. We produced a number of books to help those whose reading skills were perhaps a little more limited to grow in their faith and understanding. It was my privilege to be the author of one of those books. I've got it here. It's simply called Friends of Jesus. And you'll see there, the illustrator is our very own Roger Adkins. And these are the saints that we're going to be looking at over the next few weeks. Starting with this lady here. Who's she? That's Julian of Norwich. Norwich, at the time of Julian, was the second most important city in the country next to London. Very religious place, packed with churches and abbeys and monasteries. It was noted for the religious nature of the life there. The period of time that we're looking at is the end of the 1300s, beginning of the 1400s. Julian of Norwich's dates are 1342 to probably 1416. She was either 73 or 74 when she died. We know very little about her background, but we do know that she had become something of a religious person and eventually became what we refer to as an anchorite or an anchoress. It's a sort of religious hermit, but a point to stay in one place, and anchorites often had a special room built into as part of a church. To become an anchorite, you went through quite a complicated consecration ceremony, and what you were required to do was be dead to the world. So you had a sort of funeral. You lived in a single room and you didn't leave it. You were supported by the rich and wealthy. You were allowed to make clothes for the poor. I wonder if nowadays anchoresses would have been making face masks. And the references that we have to her is that she was left money in 4 people's wills, and those documents are still kicking around. But there she was, entirely secluded, and was there to provide advice and counsel and prayer. She lived in a time of great turmoil. There were all sorts of things going on. The Lollards were being suppressed. They were people who were trying to change and get rid of some parts of the Catholic Church. There was the Peasants' Revolt going on that affected all of the country and obviously touched Norwich. But perhaps the most significant was the plague of the time, the Black Death. And she was actually very seriously ill. It could have been that she had got some aspects of that, although having been given the last rites and not expected to survive, she actually did. Well, that's something about her background, her story. But what did she do? Well, she wrote. And I referred to a time when she was extremely ill, and it was then that she had a series of visions, revelations, what she called showings. And they were revelations of the love of God in Jesus Christ, and they come out in a particular way. And she wrote them down. There are 2 versions of that. the so-called short text, and then a later written and later discovered long text. The long text actually suppressed her name. It's thought that how could a woman write this? In fact, scholars now tell us that she was the first woman to write a book in English. Why did she choose to write in English? Some people like to say, well, it was so it could be read by anybody who was able to read. You didn't have to have Latin. The truth is that whilst that may be part of the story, in fact, as a woman, she'd have had education denied to her. So she wouldn't have known any Latin, or very little Latin anyway. But what was special about these books? Let me explain. Although she lived in a time of what the clever books describe as turmoil, her theological outlook spoke of God's love, compassion. She was optimistic, and the book that she wrote, The Revelations of Divine Love, contains a message of optimism based on the certainty of being loved by God and of being protected by his providence. One of the daring things that she did, which wouldn't have gone down too well in some theological circles at the time, was likening the love of God to the love of a mother, which of course is a theme found in the biblical prophets. According to Julian, God is both our mother and our father. Now, some people have said that it's a metaphor rather than a literal belief, but in her 14th century revelation, she writes of the Trinity, Father, Son and Spirit, in domestic terms, comparing Jesus to a mother who was wise, loving and merciful. And some people have said he was not like a mother, he is literally the mother. And Julian emphasised this by explaining how the bond between mother and child is the only earthly relationship that comes close to the relationship a person can have with Jesus. So it's quite dramatic stuff. But this is something she actually wrote. From the time these things were first revealed, I had often wanted to know what was our Lord's meaning. It was more than 15 years after that I was answered in my spirit's understanding. Do you know our Lord's meaning in this thing? Know it well. Love was his meaning. Who showed it to you? Love. What did he show you? Love. Why did he show it? For love. Hold on to this, and you will know and understand and love more and more. But you will not know or learn anything else, ever. And perhaps the most famous thing for which she's known is that she said God is nearer to us than our own soul, a theme that's repeated throughout his work, and which she said, expressed it like this: Jesus answered with these words, saying, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And she remarks, this was said so tenderly, without blame of any kind toward me or anybody else. All shall be well. Why do these books matter today? Do they matter today? It's interesting to see how stuff that was written in the 13 and 1400s could possibly have any relevance to those of us who live in the 20s. What has the 21st century got to learn from somebody who wrote such a long time ago? Well, I think one or two things. The Catechism of the Catholic Church quotes from Revelations of Divine Love in its explanation of how God can draw a greater good even from evil. And Pope Benedict XVI dedicated his General Audience Catechesis of 1st of December 2010 to Julian of Norwich. Even in the most terrible of times, she reminds us to look for the love of God, a God whose love, shown in Jesus Christ, has the tenderness of that bond between mother and child. As a dad, as a mere dad, I can still only have a poor understanding of that. But she wanted us to know how intense the nature of the love of God is. We don't think she was a mother, though who knows, but she certainly captures an idea which makes sense today. How else is she relevant? Well, curiously, she chose self-isolation, and it's not impossible that her own experience of the ravages of the Black Death might have influenced her decisions. Whilst our self-isolation is not quite as extreme, although I dare say it can feel like it for some, the understanding she expresses in her belief is that if love is at the heart of all, it is an astonishing optimism which is held out to us all today. God is nearer to us than our own soul, she wrote. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. So, Julian, or Juliana of Norwich, quite some lady. We'll be going back to these books next time, and the next person in the sequence, very ably drawn for us there, is Martin Luther, and we'll be seeing why his story as a saint matters. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.